Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to uh, analysis of the UPSC 2022 papers. Today is day 3, where UPSC has conducted General Studies paper 3 uh, exam in the morning. In the afternoon, you have GS paper 4, that is called Ethics, that we'll discuss in the evening session. Right now, let's quickly go to this one, that is called Mains 2022 GS paper 3. How the paper is and how UPSC has asked the questions this year. So this is Dhananjay Reddy and welcome to my channel. What we are doing is we are analyzing all the question papers. In the end, we will give how we have to approach in the coming days for this type of papers. Right, this is what the major theme that we are discussing. Now, without wasting much time, let's enter into the first topic itself, that is called in GS paper 3. As we know, you have 3 sections. You have 3 sections. First section is economic development, technology, environment and ecology, and disaster security, internal security and disaster management. So what are the things that you have? Economy, technology, environment and disaster management along with biodiversity, and you have internal security. Every year there will be 10 questions from economy, 4 questions from security. The rest of the 6 questions will be shared between environment and science and technology. Right? There will be 4 questions, 2 questions, 3 questions, 3 questions. In this format they will give. Right? So this is what the regular trend of asking the question paper or asking the questions in GS paper 3. Now let's start with the first domain in this section, that is called economic development or economy. This is the syllabus that's on the screen. Whatever you are finding is the syllabus that UPSC has mentioned as far as GS paper 3 is considered for the so-called the first basket, that is called economy, where you have the basics of economy in the first 3 topics, where you will be discussing about growth, planning, development, employment. Every year they ask one question on growth and employment, and there will be definite question on inclusive growth every year. This year also they have maintained the same trend. In the government budgeting, yes, at times they pick up the questions here, at times they leave it. So the first 3 components are basics of economy, where you will find 2 questions every year. This year also UPSC maintained the same. The next one is sectors of economy, that is called agricultural sector, followed by the industrial sector, followed by the so-called service sector or the so-called infrastructure sector. Now in the agricultural sector also, if you look at the paper, crops and cropping patterns, e-technology in the aid of farmers, direct and indirect farm subsidies, minimum support prices, food distribution systems. Every year there will be one question on food distribution system, food processing industries. There will be one question here, there will be one question here. Definite question every year. This year also they maintained the same thing. Economics of animal rearing, land reforms in India. Land reforms in India, they didn't ask this year, just like the so-called government budgeting, they ask once in 2 years or once in 3 years. Right? E-technology in the aid of farmers, they ask from these 3 things one question every year. So this is actually as far as sectors of Indian agriculture is considered. Look at the second sector, effects of liberalization on the Indian economy. Maximum they focus only in that year where there is some scheme related to the industrial growth. Infrastructure, there will be one definite question from one of these following. This year also they asked one question on how renewable energy chances are there in the country. So in the investment models, where you will be studying about public-private partnership models, you will be studying about public models. Again, there will be one question every year. This year they maintain a similar question. So more or less, economy is of 10 topics. There will be 10 questions. At times they vary from 8 to 10. So maximum the number of questions that they can ask from this section is 10 from the 10 topics. But it can be varied from the so-called 8, 9, 10. These are the 3 chances that we have. Now let's look at what UPSC has asked today. The slide is not that great because the question paper that I got is I have taken from the group itself. That was not a big clarity, right? So that is the reason for this low slide presentation. Now let's look at the first question. Why is public-private partnership required in infrastructure projects? Examine the role played by it in the development of railway stations in India. Obviously, this is an expected question. Why expected? Every year this type of question is coming, because I said every year there will be a question of public-private partnership, and this is repetitive question. In the last 10 years, they have repeated this question. If you look at last 10 years papers, many questions in economy are repeated. First question is repetitive question. Is inclusive growth possible under market economy? State the significance of financial inclusion in achieving economic growth in India. Again, previous year question. In the last 10 years, they asked this question 2 times, and I said inclusive growth is one thing that they asked, and definitely this is the same question that they asked. One time they asked it like this: is inclusive growth possible in a capitalistic economy? Now they changed that word to market economy, and they said that how financial sector. In 2016, they asked this question when Pradhan Mantri Mr. Narendra Modi has announced this Jan Dhan Yojana, right? In that 2 years, they have asked these questions. Again, a repetitive question. Second question is repetitive question. If you have know the knowledge, you'll write a decent answer. What are the major challenges of public distribution system in India? How can it be made effective and transparent? Again, as I said, PDS, food processing industries. These are expected questions. And again, the beauty of this question is this is a repetitive question. In the last 8 years, all these questions were repeated in terms. In the same sentence, they were repeated and they were asked. Elaborate the significance of food processing sector. As I have been just telling now, food processing sector in India significance. They will ask one question. They asked again. This is repetitive question. Look at all the 4 questions. They are repetitive questions. In the last 8 years, 4 questions were repeated. That is the reason why I asked you people to study previous year questions or have a good understanding about previous year questions. Unless and until you don't know what is the trend, you cannot analyze this. Right? All these 40 marks are exactly picked up from the last 8 years papers. Now, let's go to the 5th question here. The increasing life expectancy in the country has led to newer health challenges in the community. What are those challenges and what steps needs to be taken to meet them? Now, this is something, life expectancy, which is related to the so-called human resources in the syllabus. That is in the first topic of the syllabus. You have that component, growth and development of citizens, right? In the development, you will have human development, social development, economic development. From human development, you want education, health, right? These things. As a result, they ask this question from the so-called health perspective. So this is a question, and that is what I was telling yesterday when I was discussing GS paper 2. I said that when you study society, social justice, development, and this one, they go all together, right? So this is again your governance, social justice, inclusive growth, development, all these combination question. Now what the question is, life expectancy in the country has increased. As a result, it has got new challenges. Now in the year 2020, UPSC asked a question on what are the challenges of health sector in India, particularly focusing on the so-called the pediatric healthcare as well as geriatric healthcare, right? Which means the life expectancy. As life expectancy is increasing, what are the health challenges that they asked in 2020? Again, they changed the word and they asked the same question. So again, this is a repetitive question. 2020 they asked geriatric healthcare. Now they have asked the same thing in another format, that is life expectancy. When life expectancy is increasing, there will be more number of old people or elderly, right? Elderly people. As a result, there will be challenges. Now the question is related to it. What steps need to be taken? So all the 5 questions in economy are repetitive just from the last 6 years papers. All the 10 markers. This is some outstanding thing that you can find as far as economy is considered in this paper. This makes economy to be substantially easy. But hold on, let's look at the 15 markers. The 11th question is a 15 marker. As I said, 1 to 5, 11 to 15 will be from the so-called economy normally. Now 11th question, economic growth in the recent past has been led by increasing labor productivity. Economic growth in the recent past led by increased labor productivity. Explain this statement. Now they are asking one question. Explain and suggest the growth pattern that will lead to creation of more jobs without compromising labor productivity. Growth pattern that will lead to more jobs without compromising labor productivity. Now if you look at this question, this is somewhat challenging question. Why it is challenging is it is challenging because of 2 reasons. One reason is no one expects that economy in the recent past is growing with increase in labor productivity. By the way, what is increase in labor productivity? The number of hours, the productivity of the labor from the number of hours that they work is increased. If I am working for 1 hour, if I am able to generate 10 soaps, today you are generating 20 soaps in that 1 hour. That is called labor productivity, right? Now this is something which is unexpected or complex. The reason is after COVID-19 or after demonetization GST, we have been hearing a statement called unemployment in the country has risen. So we don't expect this type of question to be formed, but now UPSC is giving the statement economic growth in the recent past has been increased in labor productivity, has led by increased in labor productivity. Explain the statement. Now, how can you explain it? Maybe because of firing out number of people. For example, yesterday I was discussing General Motors India has fired almost 1,000 workers from its factory right during the times of COVID-19. What means a work which is done by 10 members, now they are doing it with the 7 members or 5 members. Obviously, the same work output will be same. As a result, the labor productivity is increasing. What does this mean? It requires some analysis which says that yes, labor productivity is increased, but how labor productivity is increased, particularly in the recent past, maybe in the last 4 years or 5 years after demonetization, GST, look at the country, COVID-19, right? Year after year, you have seen substantial decline in the growth, but still they are saying that it increased in labor productivity, which means this labor productivity has come at a cost. What is the cost? The firing of many employees. So this is something which is related to that context, and they asked this question. So this is somewhat complex to explain this statement. Unless and until you know the subject, you cannot answer this. And speaking on the other line, every year they ask a question on growth, right? Growth parameters. So question on the growth is expected, but this type of question is unexpected, right? Now the second part of the question suggests the growth pattern that will lead to creation of more jobs without compromising labor productivity. Now they are asking what should be the growth pattern in the country. Obviously, inclusive growth has to be there. In order to have inclusive growth, what type of recovery that economy should have? V-shaped recovery. It should not be a K-shaped recovery pattern. You should have V-shaped recovery pattern where every sector will be growing, and it has to be inclusive growth. The growth pattern has to be inclusive, and as a result, what you have to write, whatever the factors that contribute to the so-called inclusive growth, you can write there. And again, I say that this is not the perfect answer, but you can reach some, or you can get some score by analyzing in this way. Again, no one can expect these type of questions. Now let's look at, so 11th question is somewhat tough compared to these 6 questions. 11th question is tough. Let's look at 12th. Do you think India will meet 50% of its energy needs from renewable energy by 2030? Justify your answer. Obviously, as I said, right, this question is from the so-called energy infrastructure, right? Do you think that India will meet 50% of its energy needs from renewable energy sources? Obviously, you can meet it. That is the reason why our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has increased the targets of of our Paris climate deal to Panchamrut. Recently, we have increased. So, if you know this is a current affairs question. If you know about Panchamrut, what are the things that we are targeting? Obviously, you can increase it because you can justify this. What are the renewable energy sources steps that we have taken? So, the first part is very simple. How will the shift of subsidies from the fossil fuels to renewable energy help to achieve this objective? Now they are asking about subsidies, right? Subsidies is there in the food subsidies, in the fuel subsidies, in the economy. Now they are asking a question related to how you can increase the so-called renewable energy sources in the country. You can increase it by fossil fuels by giving some subsidies, right? Subsidies for the so-called photovoltaic cells, for subsidies for the so-called solar lamps, subsidies for the so-called wind energy turbines, right? Subsidies for the so-called gobar gas. So if these things are there, then obviously you can have. So what I say is 12th question is somewhat easy because this is a straightforward question. 13th, what are the main bottlenecks in upstream and downstream process of marketing agricultural products in India? Direct question. What is the direct question? What is the syllabus component of it? Upstream and downstream requirements of agricultural marketing in India. Now there is one thing called marketing of agricultural produce in India. What are the issues related and its constraints? So they are asking the same thing. Upstream requirements and downstream requirements, and one beauty is this is previous year question again. This is something which was asked in the past 8 years. So again a repetitive question, exact sentence was taken out, right? I think just like economic survey that they are repeating every year. the same content, UPSC started asking the same questions in this. What are the main bottlenecks in the upstream and downstream process of marketing of agricultural products in India? A repetitive question. You can write upstream requirements, downstream requirements, and this is directly taken from the syllabus itself. So no much ado to this, right? Next, look at 14th. Again, 14th question is a repetitive question in the last 8 years. What is integrated farming system? How is it helpful for small and large marginal farmers in India? Same question was asked in the last 8 years. Have a look at last 8 years. Whatever I said, it is going to be true, right? Integrated farming system, and they said what is small, how it is helping small and large farmers. Which means now they have asked 9 questions this year, not 10 questions. In this 9 questions, 8 questions are repetitive questions, very easy questions. And why it is easy? It is repetitive in one sense, and in the second sense, they are directly from the syllabus component. Directly, they have been lifted from the syllabus. And this is the beauty of 10 questions in economy. What is the beauty? If you study the 10 topics in economy, you are going to write all these 10 questions, at least 9 questions. This is the ninth question. Why I said this ninth question is, this is something related to growth, which requires some understanding of how it is related to the so-called labor productivity. Unless and until you don't understand the meaning of labor productivity, it is very difficult in that examination hall to write a beautiful answer, but the rest of the things. So what is my take out as far as economy paper is concerned? This year they asked 9 questions, okay, completely fine, but 8 questions are repetitive. So when you are preparing economy, please make sure that economy preparation is somewhat different from prelims preparation. Prelims economy is different from mains economy. So when you are preparing for economy, just don't, yesterday I said polity, history, geography, you study with prelims. But economy, you cannot do this exercise because economy requires totally a new set of understanding of the mains. The only thing that you have to do is, just like how we did for internal security, you have to go with economy as a module. You have to study economy as a module. You have to take this module and you have to study and you have to substantiate it. Then your work is going to be easy. So don't think that I have read economy for prelims, it is going to substantiate for mains. No, absolutely no. It requires complete set of understanding, complete set of reverse gear or reverse engineering technique for economy. So you should take this as a module component, not as a prelims component. Just like your society, social justice, governance, international relations, internal security, economy is also a module-wise preparation. Once you prepare this module, 10 questions will be in your hand. Again, I say, no need to write any question for this, no need to go and join some test series for this, nothing is required. Just look at the previous year questions, think for a while and substantiate your answers by sitting in your desk and analyzing how you can answer these type of questions, right? Don't need to depend on any other person for this, right? This is the thing that I wanted to say as far as economy is considered. So my weightage so far, I have seen essay writing GS1, GS2 and GS3. Economy is the most easiest one so far that I have seen in mains 2022. Let's go to the second component, that is called science and technology. This is called development and applications, achievements of India in science and technology, indigenization of technology, awareness in the fields of IT, space, computers, robotics, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and issues relating to intellectual property rights. This is the question, this is the syllabus that they have said. Every year they used to ask 3 questions from this domain. 1 question will be from 10 marker, 2 questions will be from 15 marker, or they might reverse it, 2 questions will be from 10 marker, 1 question will be from 15 marker. This is the actual trend that UPSC used to follow, but this year they have changed the model. They didn't ask 10 marker from science and technology, there were only 2 questions, that 2 from 15 marker. So science and technology, earlier they used to ask for 40 marks, now they ask only for 30 marks, that 2 questions from the so-called 15 marker itself. There was no 10 marker from science and technology. Nonetheless, the way in which if you look at the questions, you will understand how science and technology, UPSC plays with science and technology. This is a question. Launched on 25th December 2021, James Webb Space Telescope has been much in the news since then. What are its unique features which makes it superior to its predecessor space telescopes? What are the key goals of this mission? What potential benefits does it hold for the human race? So this is something, if you have not prepared science and technology, and if you go for UPSC, then that becomes difficult. But look at this. 25th December 2021. It is in current affairs, and every newspaper has carried this. And they said how it is different. This year, in 2023, we are expecting for this one for prelims also. All the test series in the market, they covered this. So what I say, this is not something out of blue. This is something which is well in your preparation range. If you are following the current affairs, at least if you are following one like vision test series, if you are taking that, and if you are looking at the questions, what are the questions that they asked? These are the questions that they asked, right? So at least what I say is the Hindu is more than enough to solve these problems. Launched on 25th December 2021, James Webb Telescope has been much in the news since then. So if you remove this sentence, what are the unique features of James Webb Telescope which makes it superior to earlier versions? Next, what are the key goals? So what are the features? What are the key goals of this mission? What are the benefits? So they are asking 3 questions in this, which means they are giving 3 subheadings, right? Take one subheading each and fill up your answer. Again, I say you have to know what is James Webb Telescope, because if you have not studied this, a serious aspirant who is going for mains stage of writing, they never leave these things, because this is in current affairs and this is spoken many times in the current affairs, right? So this is something expected. I don't consider this as difficult. If you have not studied, that will become difficult, but I don't consider this as difficult because this is from current affairs itself. Let's look at 16th question. What are the basic principles behind vaccine development? How do vaccines work? What approaches were adapted by the Indian vaccine manufacturers to produce COVID-19 vaccines? Remember prelims 2022 paper. In prelims 2022, they asked a similar question about Russian vaccines and Indian vaccines, and they have asked which is the technology that were involved in making these vaccines. If you do remember that question, prelims 2022, those who have written prelims, the same question was asked. The second part of the question is that, right? What are the methods that were adapted by Indian vaccine manufacturers to produce COVID-19 vaccine? Now, this is directly from the syllabus which they have taken from the so-called biotechnology. And this is expected question from the last 3 years. We are expecting this question on vaccine manufacturing because of COVID-19. This is something which everyone will study as a part of biotechnology. You have studied for your prelims. You'll also study it for mains. So there were 2 questions. One is from space. The other one is from biotechnology. Right. So this is something expected again. So these 2 are the questions in science and technology compared to 2021, compared to 2020. The science and technology questions this year were well within the expected range. I don't say that you can write it. It depends upon how you have prepared. But these are expected questions, right? So I don't say this is difficult. So these 2 questions of science and technology are a bit manageable, right? This is what science and technology say. So what is my takeoff of science and technology? They were manageable. And how to prepare science and technology? Don't prepare for module. Many people consider I have to prepare a separate module for science and technology. No, follow the Hindu. Anywhere you will be preparing for prelims science and technology component. So that will be adding for your science and technology. Follow the Hindu, and after prelims, in expected questions, we can look at expected questions, a set of expected questions, some 12 or 15 expected questions, and then you can expect these questions, how to write the answers for this. So no need to prepare science and technology for mains right from now. You are having that time, do it for prelims itself, because in prelims itself you have to study about space technology, information technology, right? Computers, you'll be studying about biotechnology, IPR rights. So don't study separately, don't bother about science and technology unless you clear prelims. So after clearing prelims, you can do this, not a big deal. So keep this module aside. Let's go to the next module, that is called Environment, Biodiversity and Disaster Management. So as I said, 3 questions, 6 questions are from this combination, science and technology, environment, ecology. Now, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, environmental impact assessment, disaster and disaster management, and don't forget that in geography also, you have ecological geography, which means they can link these questions in geography, or they can ask the questions in the so-called environment. Now let's look what are the questions that they asked. So there were 3 10-marker here and there were 2 15-marker here. Now there are 7 questions from science and technology and environment. Actually this has to be 6, but in the economy they asked only 9 questions. As a result, 1 question was added here. Now environment got advantage. Now 5 questions from environment, no one has expected this. 5 questions from environment is something which is unexpected. Now if you look at geography questions yesterday, there were 2 questions from environment, ecology from geography also, which means the section of environment is gaining traction in mains. This is the first observation that you should have from this. Right, let me tell you by looking at the questions itself. 6th question, each year a large amount of plant material, cellulose, is deposited on the surface of the planet Earth. What are the natural processes this cellulose undergoes before yielding carbon dioxide, water and other products, right? Now this is asking about cell degradation after the death, how biodegradation is happening and how these organisms are getting converted in the degradation process to the so-called carbon dioxide or methane. In the end product you are going to get it, right? Now what I say is, this question, though it is speaking about plant cells, if you have some knowledge about the so-called biogeochemical cycles, in biogeochemical cycles, you will be studying about carbon dioxide cycle, you will be studying about nitrogen cycle, you will be studying about methane cycle. Are you understanding? So biogeochemical cycles. Now there are 2 types of cycles, primary cycles, secondary cycles, like sulfur, right, phosphorus, these are secondary cycles. Primary cycles are this, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, CH4. Now, though you don't know the answer how exactly a plant cell is going to degrade, but at least you can get some knowledge from the so-called carbon dioxide cycle or the so-called methane cycle. In your prelims itself, you study this. Again, no test series will give this type of questions. As a result, don't worry if these questions are asked. You are not going to be in a disadvantaged position because of these questions. You are having equal weightage to others, right? Don't carry on to read these type of unique questions. What do I mean to say by this? See, there will be 1 question or 2 questions in every paper like this, and what the market will ask you is, they will focus their energies in asking these type of questions. They don't focus on the 18 questions which are coming from the so-called the basket itself. They look outside the basket, those 2 questions are 3 questions. Now, these 2 questions are 3 questions, it is same for everyone. It is equally competitive to me, it is equally competitive to you. So don't bother about this. Concentrate on the 18 questions that are from the basket. Don't go with the market. If they ask these type of things, leave it in the first instance. Try to get the answer then and there itself. How? This is the technique. You should apply your prelims knowledge here. That is the only thing that we can do in these type of things. Now, the second thing is, discuss in detail the photochemical smoke, emphasizing its formation, effects and mitigation. Explain the 1999 Gothenburg Protocol.